We're back with more Madden 22 ratings, and if you were mad yesterday at the running back ratings, I guarantee you're going to be more mad today as they revealed the defensive back ratings, the top cornerbacks, and the top safeties. And I think every year this is the most debatable group in football, and that's why there's literally no one's going to ever agree with the ratings no matter how they do cornerbacks and safeties. In fact, one of the guys on the ratings team said he talks to a number of NFL coaches, because they do. They talk to coaches, they bring in former players and current players to help with the ratings, because outside of looking at film and stats, they also want to get the firsthand kind of opinion on the people that are in the league or were in the league, and kind of can view it from a different perspective, right? And he said that among the coaches he talked to, he got 6 different answers as to who they thought the top cornerback was, which just goes to show you how debatable these positions are, especially when you're talking defense more so than offense. The way the defenses are schemed and the players around you really matter a lot, and certain players are asked to do more because they have to. Other players are asked to do less because simply they don't need them to do more, so it's really, really hard to debate. There's so many variables. There's so many different ways you can nitpick it. So let's look at the top 10 cornerbacks. Now, Jalen Ramsey is the official 4th member of the 99 overall club. I thought he would be. I personally think he's the best cornerback in football right now. But again, it's clearly a debatable list. It doesn't just go off of last year either. I know a lot of people think that, but they look at the past 2 to 3 years, because consistency obviously matters too. The last year obviously is going to be the most important, but they're still going to take into account have you been consistent, right? If you've just popped up and had one really good year, we're not going to usually put you too high. We want to see kind of into the next year, can you keep sustaining that? So Gilmore at 97, Alexander at 95, Tre'Davious White at 93, Marlon Humphrey getting love at 92, Xavier Howard getting love at 91, James Bradbury definitely getting love after having a real good breakout year at a 90. Then you got Denzel Ward, Kendall Fuller at 89, Darius Slay at 88. Now, I imagine there's going to be a number of guys at 88. They did say that Peters is an 88 as well. J.C. Jackson's a guy I'm curious about. I thought he would be in the top 10. Maybe he is an 88 as well. But when they do a graphic, they're probably going to put the most recognizable face at the last spot if there's a tie. And Darius Slay certainly is a guy that's more recognizable. I would argue Darius Slay should probably be a little higher, but we'll get into that when we talk about the safeties. But overall rating, it just means nothing in Madden. That's why I hate it every year, because when you look at the individual ratings, you know what the guy's really good at. The overall just doesn't always add up. But I'm actually really fine with this list, especially the top 7 guys. I think the guys in the top 7, I think they nailed that. If you want to shuffle those guys around, that's obviously a super debate that you can have, but I think the actual guys in the top 7 make sense. I think when you get to the 8th to 15th spot, you can just argue so many guys for that spot, and the 8 to 15 spots all going to probably be between 89 and 87, 86 overall. They're all going to be so close that they're not really going to play any different in the game, but it's very nitpicky who you'd want to put there. I seen some people think Xavier Howard should be higher. I kind of am okay where he is. I think if I were to move him up, it would only be 1. I would maybe swap him with Humphrey. I think that is reasonable. I don't think it's disrespectful to either player. But the top 4 guys, I think, are definitely correct, because I feel like those are elite coverage guys, whereas everybody else under them is they're very good coverage guys, but they're not elite. There's just that different little level. And Xavier Howard, the one thing that he has over everybody on the list is obviously he gets a lot of interceptions, which don't tell me the interceptions just make you the best cornerback, because it's literally the worst argument I think in all of football. But getting 10 interceptions does mean he has the best ball skills in the league, right? Because a lot of guys can't even catch the ball well at cornerback. He has great ball skills, right? And I think that's kind of what helps him out even a little bit. And he's still very good in coverage, but he's not the same as a Gilmore or a Ramsey in coverage. Those guys are just a little step up. But I think this list is fine. Now, let's get into the safeties. Here are the top 10 safeties. Now, this is the list that's definitely going to cause a lot of riots, right? We've got Matthew at 95, Budda Baker getting love at 93, I like that. Devin McCourty at 92, Jesse Bates and Justin Simmons getting love, I like that at 91, Jamal Adams at 90, Harrison Smith at 90, Eddie Jackson, Adrian Amos, Minkah Fitzpatrick, 89. So right off the bat, it's obviously Minkah Fitzpatrick. He's tied for 8th at an 89 overall, and this is the best example of, again, why I hate overall rating, because it doesn't mean anything. 89 overall seems so disrespectful to Minkah Fitzpatrick and the impact that he has, but the way the overall formula works, it kind of goes against people like Minkah Fitzpatrick. It's the same thing with the Henry versus McCaffrey argument. McCaffrey is an elite runner, but he's elite in the pass catching game too. Derrick Henry, elite runner, best runner, but he doesn't really offer you anything in the receiving game. So overall wise, it's easier for McCaffrey to be higher because more is going into his overall. Kind of similar here with the safeties. Matthew and Budda Baker, they move them all over the field. They're a little more versatile. The thing is with Minkah, though, is I don't even think that Minkah can't be versatile. I actually think he's a guy that would probably play pretty well in most spots you moved him around. But the thing is, when you factor in roster and the way certain teams scheme and just how dominant he is as being a deep third ball hawk safety, it would just be literally idiotic to move Minkah Fitzpatrick anywhere else. It would just be dumb. He's going to impact the game so much more there. It just doesn't make sense. Whereas with Budda Baker and Matthew, I would argue the opposite. It'd be idiotic to not move them all over the place. So my thing is, like, overall doesn't matter, but it's sold by EA and marketed as it means something. 99 clubs, big deal. These are the best players. But the way the formula works, it does work against some players, and I think Minkah Fitzpatrick is like the best example of that. I would tweak him a little bit to try to get him at least in like the 91s. Like, he should be where like Bates and Simmons are to me, but then even I would argue that those guys, you could argue those guys could jump up a little bit too. The thing with the overall is like the number is like, it's so arbitrary, right? Because some people might look at, like, let's say Justin Simmons and be like, he should at least be a 93. But in Madden terms, what does 91 and 93 mean? He's not going to play any different. Because, especially for defensive backs, a lot of their stuff is threshold based, meaning once you hit 90 zone coverage or 90 man coverage, you know, you're not going to really notice any difference until you get to 99, right? When you hit 80 coverage, you're not going to notice much of a difference until you get to 90 because it's more of a threshold thing instead of incremental. Whereas things like speed, you notice each time, you feel every time they go up. So, you know, if you put Minkah Fitzpatrick at like a 94, he's not really going to play any different. You bump his zone coverage up a little more, maybe his tackling up a little more, his awareness up, which does nothing in Madden. Okay, he's a 94, but he's not going to play any different. So that's why I hate overall, because number one, it doesn't really tell you how impactful that player is in real life, and that's what people look at the ratings for. Hey, how impactful is this guy in real life? But it also doesn't tell you what good they are in the game of Madden. Example, we go back to the running backs. If you look at Derrick Henry's rushing ratings, he's the best runner in Madden, which is exactly what he is in real life, the best runner. But he's not the best overall rated halfback because McCaffrey has more things factoring in at high levels. Minkah will play like the best safety in Madden outside of abilities, right? Abilities could change that. If he gets garbage abilities and like Matthew gets great abilities, that could obviously change things. But just off of the pure ratings, Minkah Fitzpatrick will not play worse than anybody on this list because he's fast, he's tall, he has 90 plus zone coverage, which is elite. He's good with play rec. He's got 80 plus man coverage, which is good for a safety. The only guy that's noticeably better coverage wise is Matthew because he is a 90 man and 92 zone because he is really good at both things. But the thing is, with a defensive back in Madden, you usually want them to be tall and fast over anything else and then have good zone. And Minkah has all of that, right? So I think Justin Simmons or Jesse Bates, one of those guys might have 93 zone. I would argue like, yeah, I would probably bump Minkah's zone up enough and some other things to get him like in the 90 overall range at least. But 90 zone and 93 zone ain't going to play different. So Minkah Fitzpatrick is going to be just like Justin Simmons, like Jamal Adams, like Jesse Bates, like Devin McCourty. He's going to play the same. Budda Baker and Tyrann Mathieu arguably could play worse than everybody else on this list because they're so short. They can't get up to the ball the way other players can. You probably want to just use them in the slot more than anything, which is something they do a lot in real life anyway. But those aren't the type of attributes you want for a safety in Madden. So again, overall just don't mean jack. But people look at it and say, well, it's just disrespectful to the player that he's not up here with some of these other guys. But the way the formula works, it just don't work that way. So, and like the last thing that I kind of want to throw out there is like a reason I really hate debating just like player rankings in general is because like most people don't really have the knowledge to accurately rank players anyway, right? And myself is included in that, but I try to go a little bit beyond the basic stuff to have a better understanding of who players are. But like most people just go off of like box score stats, like yards, touchdowns, sacks, interceptions, tackles. That doesn't tell you who a player is because there's so much context that's needed in those stats. And like, especially when it comes to a safety, right? People will tell you who the top safeties are and they've never watched all 22 film. And it's impossible to accurately rank safeties without doing that because if you're watching on TV, you don't even see the safety 90% of the play. He's not even in the frame. So you can't tell me who that player is just based off his interceptions and his tackles because you don't have the context of like, well, how much does he blow coverage, right? How much does he make up for other people's mistakes in coverage? There's so much nuance to it, right? And that, not to say that's the case with Minkah Fitzpatrick. He should certainly be higher, but just as an example, like most people couldn't really accurately tell you why he deserves to be higher because they don't have the film or the knowledge to really back it up. They just know that like they see him make a lot of plays. He made the all-pro team and all-pro voters ain't watching film like that either. So it's like all-pro matters, but it still isn't giving you the context that's needed when you're really trying to get as much of an accurate ranking as possible. So that's why I really don't like debating too much. Minka Fitzpatrick should be higher. That's kind of my rant, but you know, most people can't tell you why he really deserves to be higher. They just know that he makes big plays, and that's kind of where it begins and ends. And like, for me, I'm like, he should be higher, but let's go deeper as to why he should be higher. Let's actually break it down instead of just chalking it up to something with little context that isn't actually giving you a very accurate representation of the players and where they fall. So that's my rant. That's it for today. Hope you enjoyed the video. I will see you guys next time.